Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're watching this webcast. Today we're going to talk about Robert De Niro. Well, really about Robert De Niro's story of his transformation from Godfather in the 70s to today, Grandfather, and how that is very similar to a lot of the stories of the baby boomer generation and the 85 plus elderly generation and what they're going through today. With the number one request from seniors being transportation, hundreds of organizations like yours are looking to serve this population and serve it well. But when it comes to elderly transportation, is it really possible to help you meet your mission to help transport seniors to medical appointments, grocery trips, and social events with limited grant funding and limited drivers? Here's the thing, when it comes to senior transportation, there are basically 6 to 7 bottlenecks that can hold you back. And every transportation program has a primary bottleneck, which is the number one thing holding them back. So let's go through these bottlenecks. And really, it's through our 2016 survey, and I want to thank all the participants out there that took the survey. So here are some of the challenges and some of the responses. Medical and healthcare visits was the number one need for transportation. Drivers that had a 90-day job before retiring said that giving back was a major motivation to drive today. Of the community drivers, 20% of them gave 80% of the rides. Door-to-door service and driver personality were key comments from seniors on what they liked about the service. And the biggest challenges in general from everybody was funding and financial stability and recruiting drivers. So there are solutions. So if you struggle with any of those problems of funding or driver recruiting, or even launching a new program, then pay close attention because there is a reason why this is happening. And the reason why is this: as a director, a ride manager, or coordinator, you've got a half a dozen things going on your plate. So it's difficult to figure out the number one biggest leverage point to focus on first. Simply put, it's hard to see the entire picture when you're already inside the frame. The challenge is this: when you do have to identify that bottleneck, there is no one-size-fits-all answer for everybody. But before I get into that, the solutions, who am I? Why am I here? I'm Harsh from Spencer. We are based in San Diego. And my story is really around my mother, who turned 71 and had problems with aging and loss of mobility and dementia. Uh, she lived in Canada. I lived in San Diego. It was very hard for me to help her from such geographic distance. But I knew there were some ways that I could do that. Some ways that I could not only help myself, but also help other family members and older adults experiencing the same kind of problem. Now I have an opportunity to interact with and help wonderful organizations dedicated to helping solve this problem. So what I've been doing over the last years is ask a series of questions to the organization on what their number one bottleneck is. Once we've identified it, there are literally hundreds of techniques that can be applied to solve these bottlenecks. Now, these techniques are not necessarily mine. I've been kind of a librarian all my life. I love to see solutions. I love to see the traction and the data behind the solutions. So what we'll be talking about is solutions that actually have meat and actual results that you can then pick and choose to see which one is the best for you. So for example, driver recruiting. The open software movement, free open source software movement is probably the best example of volunteer engagement and recruiting, with over 1 million members around the world contributing a free time to developing software. And their secret sauce is volunteer engagement funnel, which is really around onboarding, how you education, how you find them, and really how you track their performance. Another problem is funding. Now, as most nonprofits, it's either grants or donations that you rely upon, but there are other tools out there today that can give you funding much more quickly and at much less effort. And using seniors and family members is a key. But now, wait a minute, you may not have the time, you may not have the money, you may not even think that your community has the digital savvy to get into these things. But let me simplify it down to a few things and talk about what we'll talk about in our next video. And if you remember one thing from today, it's grant making is dead. It is going by the wayside. There are new ways to tap into the social good of people, new and faster ways to do that. The other is retirees, baby boomers retiring. Just like De Niro in his movie The Intern, was retired looking to go back to work and looking to give back. This is an entire cohort of the population that is a real key that could be part of any volunteer driver program. So here's what you need to do now. If you're interested or even curious about what we're going to do in the next video, after you leave this screen, give us some comments, any questions, or any things that you might want answered for the next video. Thanks, and be